Hi again everyone. So last video, at least for now, on Bold Girls is just going to have a look through the exam paper and how it works. Obviously we've been over this, you've done practice papers, we're going to do lots of them, but I think maybe just to have something, a video sitting there with wee explanations just in case, could be useful for you as well. So in the hope that it is, let's just quickly skim through this kind of stuff for you. Firstly, there's two parts of the exam paper that you're going to do on Bold Girls. There's the first part, 12 marks. It looks and reads an awful lot like a close reading paper, but instead of being for a non-fiction text you haven't seen before, it's for a piece of literature that you have. But the structure's much the same as close reading. You need to make sure you read the questions very carefully, would just be the advice here. Because the amount of things they can ask are limited, the questions sometimes are quite specific, or they might for example, make a point of telling you that you need to talk about stage direction and dialogue, for example, just as one example. So be careful with the questions, be careful with the lines they direct you to as well. They'll give you a specific bit of the extract usually that you need to get your answer from. But fundamentally, it's the same approach as we do with close reading, and it's for something that you've actually been taught and can read as many times as you like before the exam. So that part one, these were the questions in the 2019 paper. So the last actual exam paper that we had. You can see here, the first one, use your own words, summarise. It's 4 marks, it's 4 bullet points, and there's about, if you look at the marking scheme for this, which you can get online, obviously. If you're struggling, email me and I'll send it to you. But there's loads and loads and loads of possible points could have been made for question 1. You only have to get 4 of them, and as I say, you do it as little bullet pointed list, and that's us. That should be fine. For questions 2 and 3, those are quote and explain, referring to 2 examples, referring to 1 example of speech and 1 of stage direction. There we go. So for each time you have, the first bullet point where you have the quotation, and then underneath that another bullet point where you're going to explain how language has been used. And sometimes you might be able to talk directly about, the word choice here maybe tells us something, or the use of a metaphor. But quite often, particularly when we're dealing with drama, it won't quite be that clear cut. What will be happening is that from something somebody says, you're able to read between the lines and understand something about them, or it reveals something about their character or about their emotions at that point, or something like that. So I don't want to go into answers in this video. We'll deal with this in class, but that's basically what we're looking for here. For question 1, use your own words. You treat it as a close reading in your own words question. For 2 and 3, asking about examples of language and asking you to explain how they do things, that's you analysing. So for question 3, how does Marie show Deirdre kindness? One thing that she says that shows her kindness, and you say how this thing proves that she's kind, and one thing that she does in stage direction, and you say how that shows that she's a kind person as well. And that's you. Really clear, really specific. Take your 12 marks and go. The next bit is the bit that everyone regards as the hard part of this paper. And it's the big 8-mark question at the end. Now, the thing with the 8-mark question is it was originally sort of intended. I remember when this was first kind of coming out, and everyone was talking about the mini essay at the end of the set text. And while we don't require you to do a mini essay, and I don't think that's the best approach to the question, I think it's a useful way to think about it. Because if this was a mini essay, you would probably find it quite easy to understand what you're being asked to do. Same as a critical essay. You need to show a good broad range of understanding. You need to be able to look at a text with a particular focus. Now in the critical essay, that focus is determined by the overall essay question, which might direct you towards a theme or a technique or a feature or something like that. In this case, what you're going to be asked to do is comment on some general aspect of the text, something that comes up that we could talk about in a kind of broad sense, and then talk about how that happens in the extract, and then link that to how it happens at other parts in the play as well. So show, you get asked to talk about, X theme, and you start by saying X theme is important and here's why, and then you show us where it comes up in the extract and you explain, and then you tell us, based on your own knowledge, with some references, a few places it comes up in the rest of the play, and you explain why that's the case as well. So some of the kind of past questions that we've seen for this one, I've got up here. These are actually all the past questions in this slide and the next one. Exploring family relationships, what makes them bold girls, mother-daughter relationships, conflict, theme of gender or role of women, challenges that people face. And for each one of them, so if it was the bottom one, tell me a little bit about the challenges in your own words. then analyse a bit of the extract in the context of those challenges, and then do the same for a few other parts of the play. That's the bit you need to be able to remember. That's the bit that you need to be able to sit there and say, right, well, this is why I was saying in the previous video, try and have 4 examples. Because if you've got 4 and if one of your examples is the extract, you've still got 3 that you can talk about in the answer. And this is how I'd go about it. This is the template I've sent to you on your notebooks as well. It's an 8-mark question. There are 8 bullet points there. And you can see where you get the marks as well. So the couple at the start are you sort of in your own words, giving me as developed an answer as you possibly can about how the thing applies to the whole play. And we'll talk more about that, obviously, about the specifics of how you do that. I've shown you some examples already. The next 2 bullet points there in the green, that's for the extract. Quote me something and tell me, this relates to, if it was the role of gender, for example, this helps us to understand the theme of gender because. And then give me a couple of examples from elsewhere, from somewhere else in the play. And it says there reference and then comment. The reference is instead of a quotation. You don't have to remember quotes for Bold Girls. You just have to remember the specific parts of the play. This is why it's important to have a good grasp of things like the plot. So you're able to say, in scene 1 at this bit, this conversation happens and they're talking about blah, blah, blah. That would be the bullet point for your reference. And then underneath that, you'd be able to tell me, this is relevant to the theme of gender, for example, because, and then you go in to explain it and get your second bullet point that way. I should stress at this stage, it is completely possible to get 20 out of 20 for this paper. It's probably the only place in an English exam you're ever going to see a paper that you genuinely have a shot at getting full marks on, because we don't really give out full marks in English, just sort of as a point of principle, but you can get full marks in this. The first 12 marks are standards, straightforward questions about a text The second part of it, the 8 marks that you can see there, do lots of practice of using this structure and this approach. And as I say, if you look at it here, you should be able to see what I was saying about it being a bit the way an essay would work, Tell us what you know and then show us the examples from throughout. I just think this approach, regimenting it a little bit in structure, and it tends to make it a little bit easier. Okay, so obviously we'll do lots of practice in class. If you get any questions about any of this, give me a shout and let me know. And hopefully this wee series of videos has been useful for you.